𝗖𝗓 Hormozi just announced that his companies did over $250 million in revenue this year. And he broke the Guinness World Record for the fastest selling book by doing $106 million in sales in under 3 days. So in this video, I'm analyzing and breaking down 5 key lessons from 2025 that 𝗖𝗓 Hormozi just went over. And these 5 lessons are key things that I'm thinking about a lot going into this new year for our marketing agency. And I want to break it down how I'm thinking about it for our own agency and how you can apply it to your own business. Let's jump right into it. First lesson that 𝗖𝗓 Hormozi covered for 2025 that I wanted to go over. And of course, there's like 26 lessons, but here are the 5 that I really thought were critical. And one of them is how to make your ads actually work. So let's listen to this.
So this is a little bit more tactical artifact. Right now, it's about volume of different creative. We did, 1,000 or 2,000 ads, I think, before we even started. I think it was 3,000 by the time the launch happened. I can't remember. It was in the thousands. And the way that advertising is moving in general, it's going to be about hyper-personalization. So with AI, you can create way more permutations much faster.
He said hyper-personalization. And I think this one's super interesting because a few days ago, I got an ad by 𝗖𝗓 Hormozi that said, if you're an agency owner making 1 million plus per year and need help with XYZ, then click the button below. I get tons of 𝗖𝗓 Hormozi ads, but I never really pay attention to it. I know he has his offer where you can go visit him in Vegas and do the workshop for like 5K or something like that. I've never really been super interested in going. But when I saw an ad that said, if you're an agency owner, immediately called out agency owners, I paid attention. I was like, okay, it actually caught my attention, right? Because it's more personalized. So if we go to the ad library, 𝗖𝗓 Hormozi, let's go check out some of his ads so we can kind of see what he's doing with this hyper-personalization thing. So look at this.
If you own a dental practice that's doing over $1 million a year and want to scale.
If you own a dental practice that's doing $1 million a year and wants to scale.
If you own a hormone therapy clinic that's doing over $1 million a year.
If you do a hormone therapy clinic.
If you own a weight loss clinic that's doing over $1 million a year and you want to scale.
If you do a weight loss clinic. So you see how he's like hyper-personalizing all of his ads. Look at that. 510 ads. I actually checked out his ads this morning and I think he had maybe like 200 or 300. So he just launched a ton more recently. Started running on December 22nd. So yeah, total time. So yeah, for 3 hours. Yeah, because he launched a ton of new ads. And that's what he means by hyper-personalization. And those are just some examples with videos. He's just redoing them, targeting every single niche possible. Look at that. Look at all of those ads he's doing. And then if you get to these images here, this is what I was talking about, the ad that I saw. If your agency closes well, but delivery bottlenecks, we want to help you scale. If your social media agency struggles with churn, we want to help you scale. You see that? He's trying to pinpoint and target certain people and where they're at and what type of business they have. If you own a dental practice, look at capacity. We want to help you scale. So that's what he means about hyper-personalization. And I think it's super interesting the way he's doing it at scale and the amount of ads he's launching and how hyper personalized they are.
And so I think we're going to have personalization at scale, and that's 2026. Right now it's the end of 2025, but like
He's saying that's 2026, but he's already doing this.
Calling this right now. I've already seen crazy returns that we're seeing in the portfolio with this.
I've already seen crazy returns in the portfolio
across all the companies. Like, this is the future. Like, you need to be able to create lots of creative. And what's more important is you need to be able to create the machine that consistently self-proliferates the creative. So it's like, how do I get the customers to make creative that gets us more customers that make more creative? That's the process you want to install in the business, rather than think, oh, I have to just keep building the team. I mean, there's elements of that for sure. But this is like, there's a great lesson for me this year, and what I'm taking into next year is like, we have to build the self-licking ice cream cone, and hyper-personalization is going to be, I'm saying 2026, but I don't think it's going to go back. So I think that's going to be the future.
So super interesting. Hyper-personalization. The next one, delegation is the price of scaling. And I really like this one. This is one I've been thinking about a lot for our own agency.
Price of scaling, loss of control, right? And so I believe that the spiritual path of entrepreneurship is a consistent relinquishing of control. And so we were employees at some time, likely for many people, and then you stop doing that, and then you decide to start a business, and you typically do that because you want to, quote, have freedom. And so then you say, I will have complete control. But in order to have true freedom, you actually can have no control. You have to accept that's true freedom.
So he said, in order to have true freedom, you have to have no or less control, right?
And then you say, I'm going to have somebody who helps me with this. So you give them a little control. And then the next level is like, okay, well, the doing I've delegated, but the management, no one can manage like I can manage. And then you give the management away. And you're like, okay, well, no one can direct or lead like I can lead. And then eventually you give the leadership away. And then it's like, well, no one can think of the vision of the future like I can. And then eventually, maybe there is somebody, Steve Jobs wasn't able to be replaced, but many of us aren't Steve Jobs and are replaceable. And so delegation is the price of scaling, losing that control. And so hardworking people, and this is what's really interesting about this, hardworking people have a hard time coming up with non-hardworking solutions. And so this has been particularly difficult for me because like I will look at problems and say, oh, I wonder if I can outwork this problem. When Bill Gates talked about this saying, it's really good to have lazy executives because they will try and think of non-high energy ways to solve problems.
Okay, so this one is super interesting. So he said, in order to have true freedom, you have to have no or less control. And then he also said that delegation is the price of scaling. So this is a super interesting one, especially if I think back when I first started my agency, when I was the one doing everything, right? Managing the clients, fulfillment, sales, any admin, payroll stuff, all of that stuff. I was doing everything. And then we hired our first media buyer, her first account manager, and I started delegating some of that stuff out. And I'm like, oh, okay, cool. And you run into issues like, okay, well, you need systems in place, you need training, etc., stuff like that. But at that point, to have true freedom is when you have less control of you doing everything and you delivering the outcome, and you have a team that's helping you with this. And then the other thing is he's saying that it's good to have lazy executive, which is an interesting one. So one CEO of a big agency that I know about, he says that one of his greatest skills is that he's able to delegate. He said, someone asked him, it's like, what's the best thing you're good at? He said, delegating. Okay, so what does that mean? That means he's really good at finding people that know how to solve the problem and having them solve it for him. So he doesn't have to be the expert in tracking. He doesn't have to be the expert in ads. He doesn't have to be the expert in this, but he knows how to delegate. He knows how to find the people and have them fix the problem. Me, I'm the kind of same way or Alex Hormozi saying like, I'm the hard worker. I want to go and just work hard and figure it out, no matter how long I take on this. One thing I've been slowly learning is learning to find the right people to go do it instead of me spending 30, 40 hours learning and trying to figure it out, just finding the right people, having them figure it out.
The hard worker won't feel like delegating because they want to feel useful. And it's incredibly difficult. But if you draw the line, you have to say that you will not do anything in order for it to scale. Because otherwise you will absolutely be the limiter of your own growth. And I don't think we are as special as we think we are. And so you might kind of just have to give up some profit in the short term, but you'll make more in the long term. And so this has been kind of like a thinking process for me, which is at this point, the razor I have is if it requires me, it doesn't work. That's how I think about it now. And so I use the term internally from my head, and Layla and I talk about this, scale zero. Like we have to scale me down to zero so we can scale it up to infinity. Otherwise, I will always be the limiter. And so this is kind of just like a great reminder or artifact that I've gotten from the year is scale zero. And I've been reminded this at this level now, is that nothing can rely on me because the business is just too big. The other little tidbit I'll add in there as well is if you are at equilibrium within your business, that means that like your supply and your demand are fixed. Like I can't take in more customers because my supplies, my team can't handle it, but I also don't have more demand, right? So it's like, what do you do when you're at equilibrium? When I was in my earlier part of my career, I would have said increase demand and then force the team to, pull from the cracks. And then with the extra cash flow, you'll be able to afford, the next person you need to hire. That was what I would have said probably the first 10 years of my career, 12 years of my career. And I would say that I have flipped that thinking probably this year, which is that I would say increase supply. And I'll explain why. When you're at equilibrium, whatever your next step is, you're going to have to bear a cost. And the cost will either be your reputation or your profit. And so if I increase demand, the cost of that increase will be my reputation because my team will probably not be able to deliver at the same quality they otherwise would have because they are overextended. If I increase supply first, then the bandwidth of my team will improve. And in the short term, they will have to train this new person up, which will be a cost in the business. So I'm going to almost have a double cost. They have to train this person up and I have to bear the cost of the person to begin as well. But once that's done, I will have dramatically increased the capacity of the business, which will then give bandwidth back, which will then allow us to push to fill up the demand side.
This one was a huge one for me, and I feel like I really needed to hear that. So he's talking about how 10 years ago, for the last 10 years, if he was at equilibrium, so saying, let's just say you're an agency owner and you work off of pods. So you have a pod that can manage X amount of clients. And if you're equilibrium, all of your pods are managing their max amount of clients that they can manage. So what he's saying is that before he would try to push through and have his pods just work harder or longer and try to take on a few extra clients, like exceeding their max amount of clients they could take on. But now what he would do is he would give up the profit in the short term to make more profit in the long term. So this one was really, really crucial for me right now, because at our agency, we're at equilibrium. And what I've been thinking about was kind of what the old Alex used to think was, is like, we're just going to push through. We're just going to try to keep pushing, maxing out until we can't no more, really just like keep pushing through until we're exceeding too much, where we have to find our next pod, which he said it's either your reputation or your profit. He mentioned this because I felt like deep down, it's like we just got to cut our profits, take the loss on the short term, but know in the long term, we're building out our next unit that can take on X amount of clients, doubling our revenue or profit. This one was huge though. And then the other thing he said was scale me. We have to scale me down to 0 to scale it up to infinity. So if you're always the bottleneck, like there's been instances where I've been the bottleneck, where I have this knowledge of, let's just say, server side tracking in our business. And whenever we have a server side tracking problem, I'm the one that has to come in and help solve it. But if I'm the bottleneck and I'm the founder and the CEO and I'm, running around doing all these other things, then my team can move forward. So that's another thing I've been thinking about a lot going into 2026, is really sacrificing short term for the long term, sacrificing the short term and profits for the long term and profits, and then scaling me down to 0 so we can scale it up to infinity. The best ROI is still talent.
Business. All right. Pay attention to this one. Best ROI is still talent. So the cost and return on talent. So let me get deep on this. You have, how much does it cost you to get the talent? And then how much will that talent make you? And so I had a dentist who came and was like, hey, I have the specialty dentist. They're really hard to find, blah, blah, blah. And I said, okay, well, how much does a dentist make you in gross profit per year? And at his facility, he made $700,000 in gross profit per year per specialty dentist. And I was like, okay, that's gross profit. I said, okay, fine. And I said, so if you just had, and I think he was doing $4 or $5 million a year in profit, something like that. And I said, okay, so what's the problem? He said, well, I can't find any of these dentists. And I said, okay, well, how much money are you spending, on recruiting or marketing? And he was like, I don't know, like $2,500. And I was like, okay, so let's hear me out. I said, if I had an investment that I said would cash flow $700,000 a year, what would you be willing to pay one time to buy into that investment? He was like, I mean, if I knew it was going to be 700 grand a year, 700. And I was like, right. So you should be more than happy to spend 50, right, on a headhunter, or 150 on a headhunter to go get this level of talent. And he needed 4 to hit his next goal, which was like to double the business or something. And so I said, all right, let me ask you this. I think he had 4.6 million, I think was his profit. I said, this year, if instead of making 4.6 million in profit, you made 4 million, and then you spent the 600 to get 4 guys at 150 each for a headhunter to go get that talent and maybe have relocation bonuses, whatever, would that be worth it? And he was like, well, when you say it like that, and I'm like, right. And so I still to this day believe that, especially in the age of AI, where every star employee who can use technology gets even more leverage.
Okay, so this one's huge too. So as we scale our agency and grow, one of the biggest things for me as a founder that has been top of mind is finding the best talent. Like every company that is a great company is because of their talent. They have a great talent. They have a great team. One thing I've been doing more deliberately throughout the week is spending time recruiting, looking at applicants, looking at potentially other companies and looking at what their talent looks like, so I can compare with our talent. And it's like I always, like, internally for our team, we're always using like the basketball analogy. Like, we're trying to build the best basketball team to win championships, right? And let's just say Kobe is on our team. We can't have, just a nobody, like someone from high school just trying to join the team. And one, Kobe's not going to pass the ball. They're not going to want to play with them. We want to have all A players on our team. And then the other thing he said is, as AI advances, the A players are going to be exponentially way better because of AI. One A player is going to be better. It's going to be better than 5 B players or 10 C players. As we're looking for our new talent and the new members for our team, one thing I'm always thinking about is we have to hire people with batteries included. Like we have to hire people not just for potential that have the skills. And if I'm thinking 5, 10 years from now, like I would want this person on my team. Like they're 100% an A player. And my wife jokes around like, you're so hard on these people. Like you interview, you ask really hard questions. Like, yeah, because I want the best people.
The return on talent is even better than it's ever been. And so when you see Meta paying these $100 million bonuses and stuff for these single individuals, you're like, they're crazy. Or they know something we don't know, which is that they might still get $1 billion or $2 billion or $5 billion in value from this one person if they can unlock it. And so I think about this from two angles, like a micro and a macro perspective. So on a micro level, when you bring someone in, you get time back. It's work that you don't have to do that you now get back. Phenomenal. On the macro level, the higher the level of talent, the more it's impossible for you to have their lifetime of experience. I can't live in AI coders last 20 years, right? Or last 10 years. I can't go do that. All I can do is spend money to go buy that lifetime of experience and then apply it into my business.
Yeah, this is something I've been thinking about a lot too as we're looking at hires is I'm really looking at someone who has the track record of experience, who's getting promoted at a role, who's not just jumping around from company to company. But like you said, when you hire someone, you're literally buying their time, that the 5 years they spent in that role or in, mastering this technology or this, marketing platform or something. So that's huge.
So fundamentally, the bigger the business gets, the more it's about assembling the talent that then builds the business than it is about building the business. And your rate of business growth will be limited by your ability to learn, because no one will come work for you who is better than you. And let me put my caveat on this. No one will work for you who is better than you at everything. For sure, many people work for me who are better than me at their specific functions, but they know that I have depth in some things, that my depth is as good or better than their depth in their specific thing. And so excellence attracts excellence. And so if you want more A players, you need to become an even deeper A player. Because at the most simple level, if you had the 5 best teammates in the entire world, you would have one of the most valuable businesses in the entire world. That would be reality. Elon's superstar skill is that he's so good at engineering that he can attract the best engineers. And as a result, he can build the best engineering-based companies. That's his secret. And so he's not actually running.
This was important too. Even me, as I'm posting content and building my brand, right? Like posting all this content is part of it. Yes, to like help us get clients, etc., for our agency. But the other big crucial part that I didn't really think about until I started hearing other people talk about this is the other big part about brand is that we get people that want to work for us, right? So imagine all these media buyers or work at other agencies or freelancers that they're watching all this content, consuming it, getting value. Eventually, they might want to work at our agency. So that's another big thing that he's talking about here is excellence attracts excellence. Like if you're a really good media buyer, like top 1% of the world in media buying or Facebook ads, whatever that is, then everyone else is going to want to join you because you're really, really, really good at that, right? You're the expert.
6 different companies. I mean, he obviously makes his key decisions in those areas, but a huge amount of decisions, I would argue the vast majority of the decisions, physically couldn't be made by one man because of the size of all 6 of the companies. And so the only way that's accomplished is by having such a strong brand, by being so good at what you do that the best in the world want to work for you. The problem is that you're not the best in the world, and so they don't want to work for you, which means, as always, we are the problem. We are the limiter to the business.
Yeah, so that one was huge. And the other one is A players make you rich.
Make you rich, but here's the downside or the hard part about A player culture. A players cost more per head count, but not in actuality. So let me give you an example. If you had 5 8s and 5 6s on a team, what really happens is that the 6s pull down the 8s, and now you just have a bunch of 6 7s. Anyways, the smart move is to fire all 5 6s, and what happens is your 8s become 9s, and you never needed the 6s to begin with.
So basically here he's saying that, the B players, the C players are going to bring down your A players. So if you have one really, really top solid A player in your team, no A player wants to work with a C player. And the other thing is the A players are gonna be like, oh, these B and C players, they're like not working as hard or they're not as good. I can probably slack off a little bit because I'm so good. That's what he's saying, kind of in that scenario there.
And that is something that I've seen over and over and over again. I had a team of 14 sales guys at one point, and we had a cancerous. There was one guy was stealing, some of the other guys knew about it. It was bad. And so we ended up cutting, I think, from 14 to 6. And those 6 guys closed more deals than the 14. Real. I've also had to do this on the media team. I mean, I've had to do this in a lot of different teams over the years where I have to just massively take an axe because culture runs amok. There's a bad leader. They lower those standards. And then you got 8s with 6s. And then the 8s start acting like 6s too. But then when you get all the bad ones out, then all of a sudden these 8s rise to the occasion and they're like, we just only want to play with A players. Because A players will self-manage, but everyone has to be an A player. Otherwise they'll say, oh, that's accepted. And either they'll lower the bar or they'll leave. And one of the difficulties of this is that your definition of an A player will change as you get better. What I thought was an A player when I was when I owned a gym was somebody who was making $50,000 a year. And I was like, this is the shit. This guy is the man. This is A player. And then I had my first $75,000 a year employee, then my first $100,000 a year, and then first 200, and my first 400, then my first million, then first multi-million. And at each level, I'm like, I didn't even know they made people like this, right? And so your definition of what good looks like will always be better. And this is a quote from Sharon. He said, the best talent is always in the future. And so we always want to make room. We want to build a business that has a vision that's big enough that their big dreams can also fit inside of it. And I'll just say on a tactical level, this has now just almost become my razor. I have yet to find an A player that I don't immediately know is an A player within the first 14 days. It just hasn't happened. And so I think what's really happening for me now is that like my tolerance for not A players has just gone down. I can just say like, I'm sure they're okay. And I'm sure we could give them time and I'm sure they could become a 7. And so what? They're not going to be an A. Why bother? And that is a hard culture to enforce because people don't want to let other people go. Hey, this person just changed their jobs, etc. And some people might say, oh, you're not giving them a chance. I want to be clear. It depends on the level of who you're hiring. If you're hiring very low wage employees and the training is really fast, that can be different than maybe somebody who has to ramp up. There are elements of this, but you can still see leading indicators in terms of character and work ethic almost immediately. And those are the reasons that most people get fired, not because of kind of the day-to-day skill stuff.
Yeah, so that one was really good. So this one was about hiring. This was also about talent hiring. They're both really good. Something I've been thinking about a ton lately. In the world of AI, your brand is your moat. So this is number 5.
All right, your brand is your moat. All right, now this is not going to be news to some of you, and for some of you, this hopefully it's news to none of you. But if it is news, welcome to 2026. If that's the case, because services and products can become increasingly commoditized, and listed goals and content and things like that are easy to reproduce, how can you build a brand? Right? So branding, the act of it, is who and what you associate with. That is what will matter. And so in a world of AI, you have to be thinking about this. And so if you're a local business, for example, your brand will be mostly word of mouth and the reviews about you online. That's what the reality is. But just about every other business, it's that plus all of the content that you're making publicly. Right? And so this is just the most to the point version of this that I can give you, which is, as always, give away the secrets, sell the implementation. People do not want to do the work for whatever it is that you're showing. Whether you're showing them how to fix toilets, they'll just call you to do their plumbing. If you're telling them how to fix relationships, they're still going to call you to help them fix their relationship. If you tell them how to fix their business, they'll call you to help them fix their business, right? People do not want to do the work, or they don't want to do it alone. Key. Myself included. I will always pay to go faster and decrease risk so I don't have to do backtracks. Like, I get the DIY. I will consume some of it and be like, this person clearly knows what they're talking about. I will pay to go faster. And I will pay to have you take this generic thing, make sure it's applied to my business so that it's right, because I don't want to pay the tax of ignorance. And so if you know this to be true, then the question is, if I want to build a brand in 2026, I want to think about what are the curated associations that I want to make that will reinforce the position that I want to have in my prospects' minds. What things do they like that I want them to think of me when they think of that? And so that's what we want to do. So what do you think we're going to do? I'm going to do a lot more business fixing next year. And I have to build a lot more infrastructure in order to do that, but it's going to be demonstration of skill, right? What's something that very few people can do in your market that you can demonstrate better than anyone else? Do that. Do as much of it as you possibly can. Do it until your eyes bleed, because the market won't even know you exist by the time you're getting tired of it.
So that one was a really good one, right? In the world of AI, your brand is your moat. So for every single business out there, even for me, this is why I'm doing videos like this, right? Is, a lot of services, a lot of products are going to be commoditized. What really is going to separate you is going to be your brand. So for a while, like in the middle-ish part of the year, I stopped caring as much about content, and I was like, I could just run ads. But in reality, you can't just do ads. You have to be posting content. Plus, if you get a piece of content to go viral, imagine how much, let's just say you got 1 million views off a piece of content and a percentage of those people actually convert to clients. Like, think about how much you would have to pay to get 1 million views on a piece of content. One thing I'm working on a lot for 2026 is getting really, really good at content. Big one. The other notable mentions is a world-class EA is your superpower. So he talks about how he's gone through several EAs, but he finally thinks he found the one. And one thing that's super crucial for him when hiring EAs is speed. So speed is crucial for him. I have an EA myself, an executive assistant, executive admin. I'm starting to think about this role as not just someone who checks emails, calendar, etc., but more as a quote unquote chief of staff who helps with managing payroll, team, who can, handle high level thinking and solve problems for me, stuff like that, right? Like someone who's very high level. When I first thought of EA, when I initially I was like, oh, I need just someone to help me, clean out my emails and make sure my calendar gets stuff scheduled, maybe call my dog groomers, schedule the appointments, stuff like that, like little small tasks. But now that I'm thinking about it long term, is I want someone really high level who's really, really smart and can help solve more complex problems, right, in the business and have like more of a leadership type role, like chief of staff role, in kind of the operations. So that's kind of how I'm thinking about it a lot more. So when you went over this, I thought it was super interesting how a world-class EA can be your superpower. So let's see, the leader is always the problem. 100%. If your business is not growing at the rate that you want, if your team isn't, working at the level that you want, it's always going to be your problem. So a huge one. And then the last one is the greatest risk is that you don't feel like doing it anymore. So he talks about how most businesses don't go out of business because they run out of money. It's really that the founder runs out of gas. They just give up. I was listening to another agency owner's video. His name's Hunter Soroy on YouTube. And he had a really big agency. I think they were making like $200K per month. And he was talking about how he sold his agency. And in the video, I thought it was interesting. He's like, honestly, I just quit. He's like, I gave up. He's like, I didn't want to deal with those clients. We had a lot of churn, a bunch of headaches. It just was too much. Couldn't deal with it anymore. I just gave up. And then he sold it. Thought it was interesting because I just watched his video and then Alex Hormozi kind of reinforcing that where he said the greatest risk is that you don't feel like doing it anymore. And that recaps the top 5 lessons that I learned from Alex Hormozi's 2025 recap. And if you like this video and you want more business, agency, and marketing related videos, make sure to hit the subscribe button and stay tuned for the next one.